We are going to make our own embossing folders with our Cricut. Hi, and welcome to my craft room. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama, and today we are going to make our own embossing folders. I am so excited about this project because it is a long time coming. I wrote my blog post over a year ago about this and just never got around to making the video. And so today is the day where we make our own embossing folders. Now these, with the materials that I'm using, which will be linked down below in the description in the blog post, cost me around $2 to make. They are mailer envelopes that I got off of Amazon, and they go together actually pretty quickly. You just have to have some patience with placing everything down. So this is my end result of my Christmas tree one. I love the way that it came out. And so let's go into Cricut Design Space to design our folder, and then we will go ahead with the assembly. All right, starting in Cricut Design Space, we're going to start with the size of our folder. So I'm going to grab a square, and my machine, I don't have a big shot. I only have the smaller embossing machine. So my max size in terms of the folder is going to be 4.5, and then I'm going to make the length 6.5. I'm actually just going to do 6, just for funsies. It also depends on how big your cardboard is, and again, how big your embossing machine is, your plates are, etc. So you're going to start with just your plate, right? This represents your plate that you're making. Your folder, I'm sorry. Your folder. This represents the folder you're making. So you can really do whichever kind of shape you want. Since it's Christmas, I'm going to do some Christmas trees. And so all I'm going to do is add on a Christmas tree, and I'm just going to duplicate them and then just rotate them a whole bunch all over. I mean, that looks pretty bad, but all over. You can do different sizes, and then just continue to duplicate and move them around. You can also like flip them. That way you're doing back and forth, right? Then we'll duplicate one more time, and we'll go here like that. And I'm actually just going to delete these ones, and I'm just going to move these so that they're spread out a little more. And you can do any shape. You could do names. Just keep in mind how many pieces you do, because you'll be placing everything on by hand. So, you just got to be a little self-aware there. So I'm just going to move things around again to try to fill out my space. All right. And so I'm just going to add on one more size of Christmas trees. I'm just going to make them a little bit smaller and have them fill in any space. So, because we don't want to have any like weird gaps. So, like that. All right. So once you have everything placed, we are going to weld all of our trees together. So I'm going to go from here and just grab all of them on the side. Like this. And I'm going to weld these all together. Okay. Now, just for funsies, I'm going to align it to the center to make sure that it's nice and good. And then we are going to take this and we are going to slice. All right. Now you can go ahead and you can delete this and this because you don't need it cut that many times. And so here we go. Our folder is good. And so you are going to want to cut this twice. So you can duplicate it. I'm going to use a regular fine point blade here, but you can duplicate it here because you're going to need at least 2. Depending on your cardboard, you might need more. And you want to make sure when you cut this that it cuts nice and clean through. So make sure that you're checking before you're fully removing from the mat. Now for the backing of the actual folder, we're just going to use a larger piece of cardboard. You can have your machine cut it really nice, but I am not going to do that. I will just cut it with a pair of scissors at the end because it's, to me, not that important, but you can always just cut another rectangle that's about this size or maybe even a little bigger. So let's go ahead and cut this out. So for this, I am going to use the flat cardboard right here, artboard right at the top. Flat cardboard. I'm using the fine point blade. I am going to put it on more. You can use fast mode if you want to use fast mode. That's up to you. And again, we want to make sure that it is clean cut on there. So let's go ahead and cut. So just a reminder, you want this to be clean cut. I did check mine, but then when I went to go do it later, it wasn't as clean as I would like it to be. So my suggestion is to cut this 2 or 3 times. And the way that you do that is you do not press those arrows to back out your mat. Just hit your C again and it will cut perfectly where it cut before. So do that about twice or 3 times. So to start, I'm going to grab one of the mailers. So I'm using a second one to create my backing. And so you're gonna cut this so you have squares. So basically I just cut it where I had like a long rectangle. So I cut off the edges. I don't really know why I did it this way, to be honest. I could have just gone on both sides right down the middle. But you know, sometimes you're just in the moment and you don't think about it. So I'm cutting it so I have 2 rectangles, and those are going to be the backing of my folder. So you really just need one because you don't really need a second one on top. However, it will give you a little bit more of a press. I will show you the difference at the end. And this was one of the old folders that I made when I originally made this tutorial. And so I'm hoping you can kind of see the embossing. The yellow was not a good choice, but it does work really, really nicely. So now I'm going to cut my rectangle. This is going to be the backing that I'm gluing everything on. So you do want it to be slightly bigger than what you already have cut. And this is when I realized that my cuts were not as clean as I would have liked, even though I promise you I did check it and make sure that it was cut. And I guess the one piece fooled me. So I am going to remove this carefully. I want to make sure that all of my pieces, my cutout pieces, stay intact on all those little trees. So I'm going to remove this top layer and we are going to place it onto the cardboard rectangle we just cut out, but we are not going to glue it. I'm just going to use some washi tape to secure it down. And now I'm going through with all of these Christmas trees, and I'm going to definitely speed up through this, and I'm going to place them in like a puzzle. I'm using the Barely Arts glue. I highly suggest using a craft glue. Don't use a hot glue because it's just going to kind of make it bumpy. And I'm only doing 1 layer of these trees. You can definitely do 2 layers. It will make it a little bit thicker, so a thicker embossing as well. However, I was fine with the way that the 1 layer looked, so it's totally up to you how many layers you want to do. It will also definitely depend on how thick your cardboard is. If your cardboard is thicker than mine, then 1 layer will be plenty. But if you feel like it's too thin, then make 2 layers, make 3 layers, whatever you feel, to give it a nice edge. So this might take some trial and error with your wants of the desired look as well as the thickness of your cardboard. So be patient with yourself when you're trying this. Also be patient while you are gluing all of your pieces down, because again, you want them to fit perfectly in and you do not want to glue them back onto the border. You don't want glue to like overflow onto the edges because we are going to peel off that backing layer. So you definitely want to just use a good amount of glue so that it secures down, but also not too much glue where it secures back to the backing piece. So your next step, once you have everything secured down, is to be patient and allow it to dry. So you want to give it a little bit of time, let it dry before we start peeling everything off. In the meantime, you can take off your other piece. You can either glue down your second layer of Christmas trees now, or you can wait until it's done if that's what you're choosing to do. Again, I did not do a second layer. Or you can just discard these, whatever, but you're going to save this other layer of the cardboard cutout, the like stencil part of it. And once it's dry, very carefully pull off that layer that we did not glue down, your stencil part. Again, carefully use tweezers, use whatever you need, make sure nothing shifts or moves, and if it's dry, it shouldn't really move at all. However, just be careful, please don't rip anything off. So from here, it's pretty easy to finish everything up. We are going to place these on top of each other and glue them down. You want this to be pretty secure, so just use a liberal amount of glue when you do this and make sure that everything lines up perfectly, as perfect as you can get it. So from here, I am going to place it back down on this so that it is perfectly lined up. Again, as perfect as it can be. And I only did the 1 layer of the trees and then 2 layers of the stencil part. And I'm going to trim my back piece. This is where I said in the Cricut design space, if you wanted to cut it out with your Cricut, you can. However, I'm just making sure that it'll fit into my machine. So I'm just trimming it by hand with a pair of scissors. I'm going to not really leave a lot of hang off. On the other one I did where you can like kind of fold the cardboard down. Either way is fine as long as it's on a hinge. So you can use your tape as your hinge or you can use your cardboard as a hinge. You're going to have to tape it together anyway. You just want to make sure that it will hinge. So you'll see I folded it over. You can also just leave it like this where it's 2 pieces and just make sure everything's lined up and put your embossing like plates on it. You just have to make sure it's lined up properly. Having the hinge and the tape just kind of gives you a little more security there. So I'm using washi tape for this. You can use painter's tape for this, duct tape, really any kind of tape. The washi tape does kind of unstick a little bit, but I can always just put new tape on, so it's not a big deal. And I'm trimming the edge. Again, this is to make sure that I still have that hinge. And then once your tape is on, your embossing folder is done. It's really that simple to make. And now our final step is the moment of truth, and that is to test out the embossing folder. Now it's going to be different for everybody, obviously, what steps you need to have. I have these plates that I put in, as well as this like little piece that you have to put in there, and then you send it through your machine. Now, I also did a second run, which I show here, where I put an extra piece of the cardboard from those mailers in. I like to send mine through twice, so again, up to you, whatever you want to do. Here is my first result of sending it through without the extra cardboard, and I love the little trees. It's great to look on the other side too. And here I'm going to send it through again, but with that extra piece of cardboard. So I just cut another piece to stick right on top, kind of just giving us a little more pressure through the machine. But again, up to you. You can do a second layer of your actual cutouts, and it will all depend on your cardboard, trial and error, but this is how you can make your own embossing folders, because embossing folders can get really expensive. Thank you so much for joining me as we made and designed and assembled our own embossing folders. I am so happy to finally have this tutorial out to you. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I try to bring you new craft projects and techniques every single week. Share this with one of your crafty friends who wants to make their own embossing folders to really elevate all of their projects. And please don't forget to give this a big thumbs up if it helped you. I'll see you soon in my craft room, and stay crafty.